Welcome to Let's Get Writing. I'm your host, Kathryn Taylor. Well, this is the show all about the writing process from creation to publication. And here is where I hope you can find inspiration, ideas, and most especially, meet the people behind the stories that you love to read. I like to say we bring life to books. Now, remember, you can always ask a question in the comments if you're watching this live, and we will do our best to answer them. And also, after the show airs, of course, you can ask questions. We'll be keeping an eye on the site and always willing to answer questions. And for people who may be watching on other platforms, you can always follow me in the shows on Facebook at Kathryn Taylor Media, and also on YouTube at Kathryn Taylor TV. And if you want to share a little bit of love and subscribe, I'd very much appreciate it. Now, on to the show. My guest today was raised on a sheep farm in Highlands, Newfoundland. And if you're not sure where that is, well, you share that in common with me, but we'll find out. Now, her first novel, The Greatest Hits of Wanda, Jaynes, was shortlisted for the BMO Winterset Award, the Margaret and John Savage First Book Award for Fiction, and the Newfoundland and Labrador Book Award for Fiction, and is currently being adapted for film. And now she lives in St. John's, Newfoundland, and her most recent book, Some People's Children, has been shortlisted, and this was announced most recently for the Thomas Raddall Atlantic Fiction Award, which is the biggest literary prize east of Ontario. So I'm sure she's very excited. And I will mention that Dirty Birds by Morgan Murray was also shortlisted, and I do have an interview with Morgan that I did earlier this year if you want to check that out. But now let's meet the other potential recipient, Bridget Canning. Welcome to the show, Bridget. I'm just going to bring you up into the stream. And I think she'll be there in just a moment. Hi, Bridget.
Hi, Kathryn.
How are you?
Oh, I'm great. Thank you for that wonderful introduction.
Oh, I'm glad you liked it. I tell you, it wasn't easy to find a lot of information on you, a lot of information on your writing, but you're a little bit quiet out there on the internet.
It's mostly just pictures of my cat,
Yeah. Well, I have to ask you, Bridget, to start. Tell me about Highlands, Newfoundland, because I have never heard of it. And in fact, where is it?
It's on the southwest coast. It's basically between Stephenville and Codroy Valley. It's usually called the Highlands to Heatherton area. There's about 10 communities that are, kind of, if you can kind of drive through all of them, you can kind of go through Heatherton all the way down to Highlands. So there's McKay's, Jeffreys, St. David's, St. Vittens. There's a whole number of places there. So, I mean, if you're trying to think about it on the map, like I grew up right on the water, and if I looked out across the water, you could see the Port Peninsula kind of, glow, like lit up, like you could see houses out there, at nighttime.
Sounds pretty.
Yeah, it's beautiful.
Yeah, and for anyone who hasn't been there, the Port Peninsula area and also the Codroy Valley, a couple of my favorite places here on the island, and great weather, certainly in the Codroy Valley in the summers. Best place.
Bit of wind.
A bit of wind at times, I guess. Yeah, well, a bit of wind in general here on the island. I remember when I first moved back, Bridget, that it drove me crazy for 2 years. You style your hair, you'd walk out the door, or if you had a hat on, that was a stupid idea unless it was a toque. I mean, nothing stayed on your head. But that's the joys of living on this wonderful island, which inspires so much work and brings me to the reason for you being here, Bridget, your wonderful books. And it's been a super exciting run for you ever since your first publication. I mean, you've done so well and you've had such wonderful feedback, especially this last announcement. How are you feeling?
Oh, I'm thrilled. I'm absolutely thrilled. Now they did tell us a while ago. They told us, God, I think about a month ago, they sent us an email, and in the subject heading it said, "Shh, don't Thomas Raddall Award, don't say anything. So I've been kind of, uh, try, like keeping that a secret for about a month. So I probably feel more relieved that I don't have to, that it won't accidentally slip out in conversation or something like that. But no, I'm absolutely thrilled. I mean, Michael Crummey won it last year, and Michael Crummey is probably one of my favorite writers ever. So to have my book kind of considered in that, alongside writers like that I really admire, is, an absolute honor.
And I certainly understand that, because so much of writing is done in isolation and in the creation of the book. And when someone actually acknowledges that work, I think it has to feel good. I mean, that's one of the, I don't know if you need it for validation, because I don't know. How do you feel about the awards in general?
That's a good question. How do I feel about awards in general? It can be, it's wonderful recognition and things like that, but then also there are lots of books that it's just so competitive. Like writing and getting published and things like that is so competitive anyway, let alone when it comes to awards. And I think sometimes it's, as I said, it's great, winning things and being a finalist feels good. Everyone knows that, but it's also sometimes it kind of feels like it's kind of a roll of the dice in a way. And there's so many submissions, and I've been on juries and things like that, and there's usually a number of you, and you're going through the books, and you're kind of it often can kind of come to, when choosing who's going to be a shortlisted or something like that, sometimes it kind of boils down to people's taste, so you try not to take it like it's wonderful, but also, try not to let it go to your head too much. I guess that, or not take it personally that people aren't throwing ribbons at you.
And
for something that you worked very hard for.
Yeah, I think that was a pretty good way, not an easy question, I guess, to answer right off the top. But when you think about it, I did mention validation, but that's really, I think readers are probably the biggest way, and hearing from readers. Of course, the accolades are wonderful, and I'm sure everybody would love to have them. But like you say, it's a very competitive business, and there's so many good books out there. They're not all going to make it to these awards, but that doesn't make them any less amazing. We have some amazing books. Bridget, I've just finished both your books. Actually, I have them here. There you go. And your characters are so kind of relatable. Like one was the most recent one, the coming of age book and so on. And even though that could be a young adult book, I found it totally amazing. But how is it that you make your characters so relatable?
I feel very flattered by that question. I'm like, I don't know. I think that it's kind of important to me that like both those books are written from kind of an intimate third person. Like, so you're seeing the thoughts and the words and thoughts of the protagonist, but you're also seeing people around them. And I find whenever I'm choosing a certain point of view to write from, if it is that point of view, to me, like the other characters around them should also feel as real. I've gotten frustrated sometimes if you're watching something or reading something and the character is very one-dimensional, and you're not really getting a lot of nuance there. So it's kind of important for me when I am not just, as I said, the protagonist or the main characters, but the everyone around should feel like human. I guess I kind of see them as like they're human beings that deserve their own story, and they deserve to seem as real as possible with all their ugly spots and foibles and things like that. So I do usually when I've written something, like I'm working on something now, usually what I do after, when I'm trying to finish or I'm at the first draft stage, I take a step back and I might just focus on that one character. I did a workshop a few years ago on characterization, and there was kind of a template where you ask yourself questions like, what does this character have in their pockets? what are, what do they, what do they, what's the last, if you were going to compare, I think one of the questions was compare them to a door. So sometimes I like to sit down and after I've written something, just kind of think about who that character is. And then when I go back and revise, I try to think, okay, is there any places here where I can show more? And then sometimes when I'm doing that, the story changes because like, you know what, they wouldn't do this. Or they wouldn't say that this way or something like that. So anyways, sorry, I'm rambling a bit. Thank you very much for saying that. But yeah, I do try my best to make them seem as fleshed out as possible in that way.
And I think there's a real art to that, and I think that's where a writer's process seems to, where they go deeper and do that. And I remember the first time I was writing a script for the book I wrote, and I was working with an editor, and he said to me, what's the backstory? What's this? What's that? And I was a new writer. I hadn't really thought about all those things. I hadn't gone that deep, and it really challenged me. And I find that maybe that's what it is. It's the texture in your book that it's just like, oh yeah, I felt like that when I was that age, or I have memories of these things. And that made me able to relate to that. And a lot, I think too, Bridget, you have a long history in education. And I think in some ways that comes through in your books as well. Maybe just talk a little bit about what parts of Bridget are in your books. It's a bit broad,
Gosh.
but
Well, I mean, in the greatest hits of Wanda Jaynes, she is an educator. She's a college instructor who has just gotten downsized from her position because of government changes. So, and happened to me. So I think it's happened to most people who are teaching. It's so hard to get a permanent job. Or if you are teaching in the K to 12 system, when you first start out, you're pretty much just taking replacement positions and things like that. You're kind of going to where the work is. So I think, because in both of us, because as I said, the first one, Grace has one, and Jaynes, she's a college instructor, so and she's kind of a jaded idealist. And I think being around so many other teachers, I think a lot of the reasons people get into education is because they want to live a meaningful life. They want to make a change. They feel like it's the most kind of hands-on way to make the world a better place. And as I said, knowing a lot of teachers and being one myself is also, people get jaded pretty easily when you're frustrated with the administration or the education system, or just trying the obstacles that you're coming up with. So I think that definitely came into effect with the greatest hits of Wanda Jaynes. And then I think with some people's children, I mean, I think there's a lot of it is, because a lot of it does take place when she's in school. So I mean, that's where we're spending most of our lives, and that kind of those kind of coming of age moments, and especially where she's in a rural area and she doesn't have like a lot. There's not a lot to do outside of school. So those things kind of weigh very heavily when you are forming your identity and things like that. So so I would say definitely with when it comes to my experience, I think it was very important for me that her experiences in school rang true, because I've been in classrooms, and I've been I did intermediate secondary education, and I've been working with young, like either young adults or teenagers. That's what I've been teaching. The age group is who I've been teaching since 2008, I guess. So it was very important for me that kind of those kind of feelings, or the drab moments of school.
Well, so often I think we write about what we know or what we're familiar with, and that did come through. That it was it seemed like you really understood that area, and so that was one thing that resonated with me. But something that a lot of people may not know: you also spent 5 years in Taiwan, and you started out there teaching. Just fill us in on that, if you would.
Oh, sure. So I lived in Taiwan from 2003 to 2008. And prior to that, I had graduated from Memorial with a BA in English and with a history minor, no, a women's studies minor. and I had defaulted on my student loans. I had collection agencies after me for thousands of dollars. And I was working in Toronto as an auditor for a pension plan, which was not really my forte. And I really I hadn't really thought about teaching, but, when I was in university, but it was kind of started playing on my mind that, like, I want to be in an environment where I have flexibility and things could kind of change. And I also wanted to travel, and I was also broke, and I wanted to pay off my student loans. So moving to Taiwan at the time, I thought this would be a way for me to kind of kill all those birds with one stone. And when I moved up there, from what was going to be a 1 or 2 year gig ended up being 5 years. It's, it was probably one of the best, I say, yeah, probably one of the best choices I've ever made in my life was to go there. So when I moved up, they hired me as administrative assistant because I didn't have any teaching experience, but part of my job was I had to sub for all the teachers when they went on vacation or if they were sick or something. So probably within the first 6 months I was there, I had taught every single student in the school, or I'd known them at some point. So basically in that 5 years, I kind of, got lots of teaching experience to the point that when the school was a private school, they opened another branch and they asked me to be kind of like the vice principal of it. So I was one of the head teachers. And then when I came back here, then I actually did my education degree. So when I did my education degree, I had been teaching for 5 years.
You had a lot of experience.
And I managed to pay off my student loan and save up enough money to go back to school. So it was really great.
A lot was accomplished. But it's interesting to take yourself out of what's familiar and just do something like that. So there has to be some adventurous soul in there, Bridget, to take something like that on. Not everyone would. Amazing. Maybe we'll see that in your work someday. What about?
I would love to write something about Taiwan, actually.
Yeah.
I want to go back first, but
yeah, well, not at the particular moment. It's a little challenging, but yeah, hopefully we'll all get to do that sort of thing again. Bridget, I did read somewhere that you mentioned writing is in the rewriting. And do you still stand behind that?
Oh, absolutely. I think about it as like if you're building a house, like if a completed published book is a house, like you've got the first draft is you're just digging a hole. Put the house in, like it's just kind of like it's like first drafts. You're just I always kind of picture myself like it's so awful. This just getting it on the paper, just getting it down, and then when you kind of I like the kind of feeling where it's kind of you have the first draft. It's ugly. It's an ugly hole in the ground in the dirt, and now you can start building things. So it's like when you build a house and you've got the walls up, and like finally when you get to that point that you can decide what color the walls are going to be. You can decide what kind of tile you're going to have. That's the kind of nice choices that you can make. So that's where the real kind of writing, those real kind of the details and things like that make it a home, that make your house a home. This is a terrible metaphor.
Well, makes your book a book. I'm getting it. Yeah. I'm getting what you're saying. It's almost like putting, like you say, the color, the decor, and I guess it's where you think deeper on your characters. What would they do, and that sort of thing. But yeah, actually, I think that's a very teacherly way to describe it, which is beautifully done. I've got it.
Thank you.
So for people out there who feel, or they're starting to write and, oh, this is awful, that's a common feeling for everyone, even someone who writes wonderful books like Bridget. So it's good to know.
Yeah, you got to dig the hole and slap the frame up before you can do anything. Before you can actually make any kind of nice, I don't know.
Well, speaking of that, Bridget, do you work with a plan? When you start a book, do you kind of have a plan, or you start this so-called house? Or do you just go in with a shovel?
That's a good. I think I usually have a plan. Like I usually know where it's going to end up. Like sometimes I will. Like I'm working on a first draft of something now, and I've written the ending. But I've written probably 2/3 of it, but I'm still but I have the ending done. And that ending might change when I get there. But usually I have kind of I have usually a beginning and an ending, started there.
Yeah. Okay, which makes sense. Let's jump over to the Wanda Jaynes, the greatest hits. of Wanda Jaynes, because that's being adapted to film, which I think is
Mhm.
that was recently announced, and that was an exciting thing. So tell us a little bit about that. How did this come about?
Well, what happened was, I think it was 2017. Yes, so the book was published in 2017. So in 2016, that fall, I applied. I submitted an entry for this contest that's called From Our Dark Side. It's an initiative for women to get into the genre of film creation. So what you had to do for the contest was submit an idea you have for a genre, and by genre, like, sci-fi, horror,
Mm-hmm.
mystery, thriller, or something like this. So I had submitted an idea for a psychological thriller about a serial killer who murders internet trolls, and it won. So so that idea was, so what the prize was is you got to take part in this incubator project where you learn how to pitch your film, and I got to go to the Frontiers Festival in Montreal. So when I was in this, and it was all happened in Vancouver. So while I was in Vancouver, I pitched the idea for this film to Marina Cordoni, who's a producer, a Canadian film producer, I believe out of Toronto, and we had a real connection. Like, we kind of
Mm-hmm.
really liked each other right away, and so we became, social media friends. And then and then my book came out, and then that fall, she happened to be in St. John's for the St. John's International Women's Film Festival, and we met up and started talking. She's like, "I saw you have a book out. I'm going to read that book." I was like, "Yes, please, please." So she read it, and so we'd already had that connection.
Mm-hmm.
And my serial killer movie never happened. Maybe down the road, maybe I'll try to get the ball rolling on that again. So she read the book, and we've basically been working together for the past couple of years in developing the script. And now we have a team, and we've signed a director. We've got Gia Milani on board, and Mary Sexton here in St. John's. And yeah, we've submitted to Telefilm. So
Well,
yeah, it's all
fingers
very exciting.
crossed for you. It does sound really great. And that book, the scenes, and people have to read it. We're not going to tell them anything if they haven't read it yet. They'll have to. But that book really lends itself to film. I think I can, and actually, in many ways, even does your other one. And sometimes when you read a book, you can see it. And in both of those books, I definitely could.
Oh, thank you. Well, if anyone wants to buy the film rights to Some People's Children, it's available.
There you go. Throw it out there. Never miss an opportunity.
Yeah.
What about if for people who are watching, what advice do you have for writers? I know we touched upon the editing, but is there anything else that you've learned along the way? And while we're talking, I'm going to show a few photographs as well up here. But yeah, any kind of advice there?
I think for a long time, I told myself, for a long time, it took me, I had myself convinced that if this would be something I would fail at. And so I told myself that my writing was only for me. It's just for me, just something that I do myself. But don't be afraid to. I think one of the biggest obstacles for me was actually showing my work to someone else, like actually like letting someone read it. So, find yourself a community. I think that's probably the thing that's helped me the most. I have a couple of friends who I call them my gentle mentors. So at first, when I was first writing, I would show them things, and they gave me really positive feedback and good constructive criticism. And from that, I kind of, continued, showing it to more people. I started submitting to things. So basically, find a community and submit. Just don't give up. You will get lots and lots of rejections. I
Mm-hmm.
have my submittable account is just like a spreadsheet of no. So I think just be aware that you will get rejected a lot, but just keep working and listen to people. So find yourself a community, find someone who can give you feedback. That could be with a writing group, that could be with friends who might be receptive to helping you with your writing, taking a creative writing course or something like that, taking a workshop. The Writers Alliance of Newfoundland and Labrador has workshops all the time, reaching out to, like Memorial University has a writer in residence. Sharon Bala is a writer in residence at Memorial right now. Part of that role is to give feedback to people in the writing community. So a lot of times I didn't remember not knowing about that's something that you don't, I thought you had to be a student or something like that. Like, so look around out there for people you can connect with and people who can give you advice and, tell you what's working and tell you what's not working.
Wow, I think that is fantastic advice. And to have a group, and you often hear that, and you often hear of people who have written, and I think I even felt this, to show it, to put it out there where you feel a bit vulnerable. What if people hate it?
Yeah.
And I put all this, there is that feeling. So when you do have friends that you can share things with, and not just friends, but groups and organizations. In Newfoundland here, we have a huge community of writers. I'm continually amazed, and a lot of people who are willing to share time and offer support.
The writing community here is extremely supportive, wonderful. Yeah,
it does seem so. And just on the screen here, just as we wrap up, Bridget, this is you at Word on the Street in Halifax. We'll show people a few things. Anything about that? Were you presenting there? And
I did a reading. And there was, sorry, just having something jump up on my screen for some reason. That was the Halifax Word on the Street. So that was kind of more like a networking opportunity, like a book signing and a reading and things like that. And it was really great to be able to meet a lot of other Atlantic authors there. So that was probably, all the Atlantic writers from all the Atlantic provinces were invited. So that was great. That was when I first met Dr. Pam Hall, and I think we sat next to each other in the airport and had a wonderful chat. Anyway, and this is also from Word on the Street.
Word on the Street. And let's see, what do we have here? You're talking here. This is a festival in Newfoundland.
That's at the Lanya Vanya Festival. That was this September. This was probably the only. I don't have a lot of pictures. It's probably the only public reading I was able to do this year. When I say this year, of course, I'm talking about the past pandemic year of our lives.
Exactly.
So this was in the fall of 2020, and I think it was the first time I was actually able to go and do a public reading because our levels were low. So there was limited capacity. This is at Bannerman Brewery, yeah.
And there you are at the rooms.
Yeah, that's Jason Sellers. That this was the rooms were doing. I think it was the Rooms Book Club. I'm trying to remember. They every couple of months they'd have a different writer, and they would do kind of an interview, like a reading and an interview like this, looking out over the Narrows. It was wonderful.
Oh,
and that's my horrendous office.
Yeah, you didn't want me to show that. But you know what? It's a place of where work gets done, and it looks wonderfully comfortable.
It's so brown. I would love to. I would really love some just to renovate it, like this carpet.
Well, you shall. I'm sure.
And the cat has clawed death out of this chair. So.
Well, so many of the guests have pets. We should have had a picture of your cat too. But Bridget, as we wrap up here, I just want to thank you so much, and again, for sharing your ideas and your stories here. But we're not done. We're going to jump on to Instagram. You're going to do a bit of reading. So again, for everyone who can't see that, you have to go to, no, we're going to do it, on the Facebook platform. You can check that out here as well. And then she'll be on Instagram later. So wonderful. Well, Bridget, say goodbye to everyone along with me. And thank you so much.
Goodbye. Thank you so much. This was wonderful.
It was really a lot of fun. And we'll see you very shortly.
Okay. Bye-bye. See you soon.